Good evening. Thank you for coming this evening to this the second of our DWU lectureship series, and we're delighted to have Darryl Burton with us this evening. It's been a real pleasure. The students responded to Darryl in such a beautiful way this morning. Darryl is a graduate of St. Paul School of Theology in Kansas City, and the president of St. Paul School of Theology is with us, and he's going to provide the introduction to Darryl. They're very dear friends and have known each other for years. And so I'm going to start by inviting Neil Blair, who was formerly vice president of advancement here at Dakota Wesleyan, but is now the president of St. Paul Theological Seminary, as I mentioned. And Neil will introduce Darryl.
Thank you very much. Good evening. I see a number of familiar faces, having been here for about 4 years as Vice President for Development. And what a joy that was. What a great time I had at Dakota Wesleyan. And so it's fun to be back here to see many of you who I know. I'm not going to give a long introduction because I'm not the one that you want to hear. Because if I began to tell the story, Darryl needs to tell the story. Darryl Burton has become a dear friend of mine, and it was by the grace of God, once he got through what he went through, to end up at St. Paul School of Theology. I used to believe, theologically, that there were just coincidences. But the older I get, I'm not sure I believe in coincidences anymore. A friend of mine, Dr. Liz Campbell, who I think's out here somewhere, said that her niece once said, "You know, I don't believe in coinkydinks anymore." And I don't believe there have been many coincidences that brought Darryl to the point where he is. He's been a good partner with our Creator and in the image of Jesus Christ to bring him to where he is today. And he's been to my house. We've shared stories and laughed. And I'm so glad that he attended St. Paul School of Theology, where I graduated in 1980. Came back as president 5 years ago and was previously 19 years before he came here as vice president. So, Darryl, that's all I'm going to say. You're a dear friend. I love you. And I'm so glad that you're doing what you're doing, given all that you have been through, to help others who have been wrongfully incarcerated and helping them find a new way. And we want to be of help to you as you help others. So I introduce to you Darryl Burton.
I got a mic. Thanks. Thank you, Neil. Thank you so much. And I give thanks to my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, Lord of my life, and I truly someone who say that very humbly because I did not always believe in God. In fact, I had gotten away from God and religion early on in my journey, and I'll tell you a little bit about that here in a minute. But and thanks to Joel also for having me come here. I want to make sure this technology stuff works. Okay, there we go. I'll talk about her in a minute also. I have to check the technology because I didn't grow up with this stuff. I didn't know anything about technology and everything. It didn't exist when I left. But, you know, yes, I'm an associate pastor at United Methodist Church of the Resurrection by way of St. Paul School of Theology, where Neil's the president, because I went to seminary at St. Paul School of Theology, started in 2012, finished in 2015 and 16, graduated and landed at this place called Church of the Resurrection. And Liz Campbell, she's also a member there, and she's, I think, also a resident here. So, you know, I feel like I have some roots here in Mitchell, South Dakota. And Joel invited me up. We tried to do this a couple of years ago, I think it was. And I had an accident. Had a couple of accidents a couple of years ago. One was I had a traffic accident in a truck. My truck ran into a tree, and then 6 months later, I had a fall out jogging, running, and tripped, fell, hit my head, and they found me on the pavement somewhere. And I didn't know Olathe, Kansas. But at any rate, I'm here. So I've had a couple of close calls, I would say. But the worst of it was going to prison and spending nearly 25 years in Missouri State Penitentiary. And so I just want to share with you this story, which is a true human story. And like any story that's ever told, you have three parts to a story. You have an opening, a middle, and an ending. That's how stories are told. All stories have those basic elements, whether it's in a book, whether it's in movies, documentaries, music, films, you name it. But the message, and I say this to every group that I speak to, is that my message is about hope and forgiveness. That's my message. Because I had neither one. I was put in a place that was a hopeless situation, and I was not a forgiving person. In fact, I was very angry, filled with a lot of bitterness, a lot of hate in my heart for many, many, many years at the criminal justice system, the entire criminal justice system. But there is, a God who helped to deliver me from that. And so as I share this story, whatever you feel, whatever emotions, that invoked inside of you, it's okay to share, whether it's parts make you laugh, make you cry, make you angry, make you upset, because it is a true human story. And it happened to me, and it can happen to anybody. So just to, give you a little bit of the backstory, I'm born and raised in the city of St. Louis, a little bit south of Ferguson, Missouri. And my grandmother had 9 children, 7 girls and 2 boys, and she was very strong in her faith tradition, which was the Baptist faith tradition. And in the Baptist faith, went to church a lot, like Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Stayed a very long time. And one of the things I love about Methodists is that you got 1 hour, you get in, you get out. I love that about Methodists, You don't waste no time. In 20-minute sermon, let's go, Pastor. We got to get out of here. We got things to do. I love the Methodists. I love my Baptist cousins, too. But at any rate, I'm a recovering Baptist. I recall my grandmother, she said these words when I stopped going to church. Up to a certain age, we could stop. We could choose for ourselves, 12, 13, whatever it was. I'm, Grandma, I'm done. I've had enough of Jesus the last 3 lifetimes. I don't want to go to church anymore. I don't understand God. I don't understand religion. And we're poor, so God is not helping us. And she said, boy, one of these days, you're going to need Jesus. I just hope you remember to call on him. And I said, yeah, Grandma, whatever, right. Dismissed behind her back, not in her face. She would hit me with a frying pan, so she didn't play that. Little bitty lady, little petite lady, but strong in her faith. And she loved Jesus and loved God. But she was right, and I've learned, and I'm married, to this young lady named Valerie, that women are usually right, like 99.9% of the time. Valerie is right, even when she's wrong, but, she's right all the time. Anyway, just jumping into the story. My grandmother did the reverse of my mother. My mother did the reverse of my grandmother. She wanted to be a copycat. And so my mother had 9 children, 7 boys and 2 girls. And so of all my brothers and sisters, I'm the darkest in the family. Some would say the black sheep by birth. And I got teased growing up. My brothers would call me things when they pile on, when it's my time to be the butt of the jokes. They would call me things like Oreo, chocolate chip, milk dud, lights out, shoe rubber, tar baby, jet black, blue black, black one black, triple black, you name it. Anything had something to do with being dark. I got teased about it, and I didn't like my dark complexion. I didn't like my dark skin. I was ashamed, self-conscious. I was insecure about my complexion. And so I'd ask my mom, Mom, what happened to me? Why am I darker than all my brothers and sisters? Did you leave me in the oven too long? What happened? And she teased me, go on, baby, you just my little chocolate drop. I said, ain't funny, Mama, you teasing me too. And she did. But, my dark complexion, what I thought was a curse, actually became a blessing for me. This is what helped me get out of prison. And I'll share that with you at the third part of this story. So here's what happened one night. A guy was pumping gas into his automobile, and another man approached and shot and killed him. 3 or 4 people gave a description to the police the night the crime was committed. They said the man they saw commit the crime was about 5 feet 5 inches tall, medium to light skin. Well, I'm not 7 feet, but light skin? I don't think so. That don't include me. That excludes me. If you turn the lights out right here, right now, dark in this room, I would disappear. I'd blend in with the darkness. I'm a dark man. I'm proud of that today. So how do you confuse me with light skin? It's not possible. No motive, no ballistics, no DNA, no confession, no weapon, no fingerprint. Nothing connected me to the crime with this one exception. Witnesses, snitch witnesses. Guys who came to court and they raised their hand and gave an oath and said, I swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help me. I get some participation, whatever? Yes, this is participatory. But at any rate, so help me God. And they lied. They lied before God and anything that has something to do with religion. I was not angry at God. I didn't believe in God. God didn't exist. Keep God out of this. Human beings is what I don't want to deal with. Human beings did this to me. And that's who I was upset with, because human beings is unfortunate. We have this thing called free will, and we do other horrible things to other human beings on the earth. And so keep God out of this. I had this, excuse me, I had this public pretender, and they call themselves by different names, who I saw one time. I had a 3-day trial, and I was convicted in less than an hour. It happened so quick, make your head spin. And what else upset me about this whole this saga as it started out in this courtroom is that the lawyer, the public defender, the judge, and the prosecutor, they had a sidebar where they had a conversation between the three of them. And they talked about another suspect who not only fit the description, but he had shot the victim on 3 different occasions. The 4th time he shot the man, he killed him because there was 2 drug gangs fighting over drug turf in the inner city of St. Louis. And they knew about that. The judge, the lawyer, and the prosecutor, they said they kept that from the jury. They kept that information from the jury. Well, that's not justice. That's an injustice. To me, that's a miscarriage of justice. And from that point forward, I began to hate the entire criminal justice system. Anywhere in the world, if you work for the justice system, police, prosecutor, judge, defense lawyer, you name it, guard, I hated you. And hate is a very powerful thing. It can grip your heart like it did mine for many, many years. And for what a handful of people did to me, I hated the entire system of justice. Anywhere in the world. And I was an equal opportunity hater. I hated them all equally. It didn't make any difference to me, whether you was a judge, a police, a guard. And I knew that wasn't right. Intellectually, I knew it, but I'm telling you, hate is so powerful, it can grip your heart like it did mine. And so I'm facing what's called capital murder, espionage, and treason. The only 3 crimes in the United States that if you get convicted, you're going to get one of 2 sentences, life or death. And this is what I'm facing. And I'm an innocent man. And so they brought me over for sentencing after they convicted me, and they waived the death penalty, and they gave me life without parole for 50 years, plus 25 years consecutive. So that meant I had to spend 75 years in prison before I would have been just eligible for parole. This is 1984. I'm about 22 years old, so 22 and 75, you do the math, it's almost 100. So it wasn't death by lethal injection, it was death by incarceration. That meant I was never supposed to get out of prison. In fact, according to the law and the way they convicted me, I shouldn't be standing before you tonight. A miracle. And so when they brought me over for sentencing, the judge asked the lawyer, you have anything to say before we pronounce sentence? She said, no, Your Honor. I said, wait a minute. I want to say something. Can I speak? He said, yes, go ahead. I said, Your Honor, this courtroom, the police, the prosecutor, the defense attorney, the witnesses, you all are part of this conspiracy. You confiscate my freedom. You framing me. And I'm an innocent man. He said, look, I didn't find you guilty. Your lawyer didn't find you guilty. If you're mad at anyone, be mad at the jurors. That's who found you guilty. I said, but Your Honor, you have the power to overturn this conviction. You saw those people come in this courtroom and lie on me and submit perjured testimony against me. And you can do something about it. He said, this court and no other court is going to overturn what 12 jurors of your peers have decided against you. And he was right. No court would. From state, local, federal, all the way to the Supreme Court. No court would overturn that conviction. The last thing I said to that judge is, I don't know how long it's going to take, but I'm going to fight this case till I prove that I'm innocent. Very angry with this judge and with the system. My motivation was to fight the case till I proved that I was innocent, and also this was my motivation. This young lady who was 7 months, this is my daughter, she was 7 months when I saw her. I saw her 3 times. The next time I saw my little girl, she was turning 25. So they didn't just take, my freedom, but they also, one sentence created 2 prisons. It caused, her not to have a father in her life. And her mother had left Missouri. I don't know where they went. They went somewhere to another state. And my little girl, she told me that her mother got strung out. Her mother ended up in trouble with the law, and she ended up in foster care. My daughter was in the foster care system. And so, like I say, we both were in institutions. No fault to her. She didn't ask to be here, but she went through a very tough time as well. And said they lived in basements, abandoned buildings, vacant homes, shelters, until her mother lost parental rights. I didn't know any of this, but I wanted to be a father to my daughter. I had just enrolled in college. I wanted to go to college for sociology and business administration. Went to a different kind of college. I can tell you that right now, but here's the college that I went to. In fact, they put me in these what's called 5-point shackles, 2 wrist shackles, which is handcuffs, very tight on my wrist, 1 on the waist, and 2 on my ankles. They call them 5-point shackles. And they took me to this place right here. It's called MSP, Missouri State Penitentiary. This place, Time magazine, wrote an article about this prison, and it was described as the bloodiest 47 acres in America. And one time it was. And you can Google that, or you can ask your phone. Bloodless 47 Acres in America. An image or a link to that prison is going to pop up. It's closed down now. It's a historical site. But every day in that prison, 3 men got stabbed or assaulted or attacked. Every day. I mean, what you saw like with George Floyd, well, that's what happened at prison on a regular basis. Even as we speak, in maximum security prison, whether it's in South Dakota or Missouri or New York, wherever, they're violent places. Very violent, and no one can help you. And I recall when they drove us down the side of this prison in this, what they call this bus called a Gray Goose, just a school bus painted over gray, and it was like we was being transported from one dimension into another, and moved down and drove down the side of this prison like in slow motion through these huge black gates and bars. And we saw this big old banner, you know, like this big banner back here, and it said, "Welcome to the Missouri State Penitentiary. Leave all your hope, family, and dreams behind." And they meant that. No hope for you. Family couldn't help you in your dreams, were literally like nightmares. You know, and I learned that over the years that the word hope, an acronym for the word hope, is hold on, pain ends. But man, God forbid it would take 20, 25 years. And this was the process and how it worked in prison, in a room probably twice this size, but 30 or 40 men, and I beg your pardon, ladies, but they told all of us, they took the shackles off and they said, "Now strip down to your birthday suit and stand spread eagle." And they sprayed us under our arms and our genital areas. They told us, "Turn around, bend over, squat." And they sprayed us in our buttocks area with some kind of bug repellent for lice, and then told us to shower off. About 30, 40 naked guys, very uncomfortable. And you're just standing there until they sign us the prison identification number. The number they signed me was 153063. And I hated it. I said, "That's not my name. You branded me like I'm an animal, just degrading me, dehumanizing me." And that was the whole process. That was part of it. And then they would call over the intercom system. They would say, "Burton 153063, report to your housing unit, report to the captain's office," and I refused to go. I wouldn't go. I wouldn't obey that command. And the guards would come and they would be angry. "Burton, did you hear your number being paged over the intercom system?" I said, "No. I heard your number being paged over the intercom system. That's not my name. My name is Darryl Burton. You branded me like I'm some kind of an animal. I'm not an animal, and I shouldn't even be here." They said, "Well, if you don't go and obey that order, then we're going to put you in the hole." Put me in the hole? I said, "We're already there. This whole prison is a hole. What do you mean, put me in the hole?" They were talking about ad-sig confinement, solitary confinement, where you're locked in a cage, 23 hours out of a day. You're locked in this cage. I'll show you an image of that in a minute. But 23 hours, you're locked in this cage with no human contact, very limited human contact. The only contact you have with another human being is when they bring you your breakfast, lunch, or dinner. And in the center of the door, they have what they call a chuck hole. They open that gate, they open that chuck hole, and they slide you your breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and that's it. They lock it back up. No more contact with human beings for the rest of the day. And that could make you lose your mind because we're made to have contact, relationships, connection with other people. That's just how we are as human beings. And so a few days later, I'll be, "Hey, get me out of the hole. I'll obey that order. When you call that number, I'll come," because I wanted to be around other inmates. I wanted to just be out in general population. I want to be able to work on my case. No matter how crazy that place was, you still need to be with human beings. And so here it was that I get assigned this, to this housing unit. Me and another guy in a housing unit that looked like this here. These huge housing units, they so large, it looked like, the corridors as long as a football field. And I remember the first day in a housing unit just like this here, day number 1. Me and another guy, we had gotten assigned to, this housing unit. A housing unit looked like this here. We had our bed linen and our clothes in our arms. And they locked us behind what's called these JC gates. These tall gates, and they lock these gates with these long 6-inch skeletal keys. That's the only way in, and that's the only way out of that housing unit. And they have these tiers that goes up several stories. They call them walks, 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way to 7 and 8 walk, with rows of inmates in these housing units, about 300 men, with 2 guards, just 2 guards. One guard would leave, and he'll go have his lunch, and whether you left with 1 guard and 300 men. So, here's what happened in these units is that sometimes you hear these unbelievable screams, like it was just coming from deep within inside of a man's soul. We would ask, why is that guy screaming like that? Only to discover that 2 or 3 men that were in the cell and they were assaulting this guy, or they were attacking this guy, or excuse the language, they was violating him in a sexual way. They was raping this guy, and you say, man, these guys, they come to prison just to do their time and, try to, get out and, try to be okay, but not in prison. If you come to prison, particularly when a guy go to prison for harming women or children, and you've probably heard this here, they are the most hated people in prison. Have you heard that? Yeah, they are, and that's true. And so a lot of those guys who come to prison with those kinds of charges were, they're the first one to get attacked and get hurt, and who are hated by everybody. Guards and everybody hate what's called a sexual predator. And some of those guys, unfortunately, were innocent. I remember a guy who came to prison. He had been sentenced to prison for killing a woman that he had never seen in his life, never laid eyes on her. He was from Illinois. He came to Missouri to visit some of his family members, was going back to Illinois, a little 18-year-old white guy, and got pulled over, and he got charged with this murder for this woman. Never knew her, didn't know her name, knew nothing about her. And they attacked this young man every day in that prison almost. He got brutalized. This young guy got hurt a lot because he was just charged with killing this woman that he was innocent of. He hadn't done nothing to this woman. It was 6 months after I got found innocent, he got found innocent. But it didn't matter in prison. In prison, they got a thing what's called Convict Court. Inmates, if they think you did something to women and children, there are no appeals, there are no judges, there's no what you call procedures. They come after you, and they try to hurt you, and they try to sometimes take your life. That's how prisons work, unfortunately. And so I remember me and another guy, they put us in this housing unit, and they locked that gate. Boom! And he was going to one cell, and I was going to a different cell. The first day in that unit, the first day we got assigned to that unit, we heard some rumbling, boom, 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 and turned and looked around, and we saw two guys chasing two other guys, and they were stabbing them. They were stabbing these guys the first day, in that unit. Come on in, people. It's a whole lot of folks in the hall. Come on in. Come. There's seats. Come in. You make me nervous standing out there like that. Come on in. Yes, a lot of folks in the hallway. But at any rate, yes, first day in that unit, we saw two guys getting stabbed. And then, the day that I got released, August the 29th, they was rushing a man to the infirmary, the prison hospital. A guy has cut his throat from ear to ear, tried to decapitate him, and blood was just running off this gurney. That was what I saw the day that I was getting released from that prison. And that's 20-something years, almost 25 years, of so much more violence and hate and anger in that place. And I was filled with hate and anger. And I had to fight. It's just, prisons are like that. You just can't go to prison and say, I'm just going to just be cool, do my time. No, it don't work like that. It's just, by the grace of God, I wasn't charged with, doing something to a woman or to a child, but it didn't matter. But had I had that kind of charge, it would have been very, very extremely difficult for me, because 2 or 3 guys with knives coming after you, what are you going to do? How can you defend yourself? And you can see, I'm not a real big guy, but it didn't matter. Big guys, small guys. Just the hate that people have for people who hurt women and children, because the women are considered children the most vulnerable of society. So that's how prison operate. I recall, I'm just going to tell you one other incident just very quickly. There was a guy who came to prison. He was a new guy that came to prison. All the guys who come to prison stick out like a sore thumb. You know why? Because they have on what's called these brand new pressed grays. Gray shirts, gray khakis, it's brand new. They still have the name tag over the left breast pocket. Everybody else's stuff is worn, torn, ragged, old, wrinkled. And so a new guy came to this prison one day. It was a beautiful day out on what's called the lower yard. Hundreds of inmates out on this yard. Some playing basketball, running the track, playing handball, lifting weights. There was a couple of teams playing softball. So me and some other guys, some of us standing and sitting in the bleachers watching these two teams play softball. Well, a new guy, he come and sit down in the bleachers to watch these teams play softball by himself. That's a no-no. But he don't know, he's not aware that you got to have somebody watching your back at all times. So he sits down watching the teams play softball, and another guy walked to the weight pile, picked up a curl ball, came up behind that man and hit him in his head so hard it split his head from the front all the way to the back. He almost knocked this guy unconscious. This guy gathered himself and looked at him and said, "Man, what did you hit me for? I don't even know you." He dropped the curl ball and said, "Welcome to prison, punk." That was it. You know what we did? We didn't say, "Hey, don't do that, look out." We got up, me and the guys, and we just went to another part of the prison. You can't get involved. You can't say anything. And some of that haunts me right now, because I know some of those guys are innocent, and no one should be treated unjustly, even if they sent to prison for whatever it is. It's not for the convicts or inmates to just brutalize other human beings. But that's how that world works, but I never forget those screams. Never, so in a cell like this here, that's why I had to live with another human being. Forced to live with another guy. And sometimes you don't always get along. And sometimes you have a disagreement, 6x6 cell. You have an argument. Have you had a disagreement with anybody ever in your life? Can I see it by show of hands? It has happened, right? Well, you can't get away in here. And if the disagreement is so intense, until I was sharing with somebody, they was asking, Darryl, did you ever get any good night's sleep in there? I think it was Neil was asking. I said, it's literally, you sleep with one eye open, literally, in that place, because you get into an argument with a guy, you don't know if he's going to snap, if he's going to, while you trying to sleep, start stabbing you. That has happened in the prison. And so you really, I know we got sometimes you got these big old houses, 2,000 square feet or whatever, and you can't get along in these big old houses. I'm like, man, you can go to another room. You can go you can go outside. You can't do that in prison, if you get into an argument with a guy, and that's unfortunate. But that's how prisons are, so you got to try to figure out how to make it work. So here's what I was able to do to try to, get myself back to society. I began to work on my case, and I filed motions and pleadings and briefs with every court that I could think of. And every court that I filed something with, they would deny me. And I filed with another court and get denied, and with another court and get denied. It could have been my middle name, Darryl Denied Burton, because no court was granting me any kind of relief. Then I went on a letter writing campaign, and I wrote hundreds and hundreds of letters from the United States to Canada to Europe. I wrote heads of states. I wrote governors, senators, presidents of the United States. I wrote Republicans, Democrats, independents. I wrote Oprah Winfrey. I wrote the big O. Yes, I did. and they got in touch with me a couple of times since I've been home. Somebody from her, I guess one of the producers. And I'm thinking, you're a day late and $1 short. I'm out now. What do you want to talk about now? I'm free. Help somebody else. Don't tell Oprah I said that. I know y'all recording this, but I love you, Oprah. But anyway. And I wrote the church. I heard the church is supposed to help sinners. Isn't that right? That's what the church help, right? When I'm in that club, I'm deep in the sinners club. Help me. And the church wouldn't help me. No one would help me. And then I saw on television in 1990, I believe, an organization called Centurion Ministries, the first organization to help innocent people get out of prison, the first one created in the whole world. And it was on 60 Minutes, I believe it was, in 1990. It was helping this lady get out of a Texas prison. She had served 9 years for a murder she didn't commit. I said, well, if they helping innocent people get out of prison, they got to help me too. And I wrote them in 1990. And they wrote me back and said these words, essentially, yes, we help free innocent people who are in prison, but we're a small organization, we have limited resources, and we get 1,000 requests every year from inmates who claim to be innocent. Out of 1,000 requests, we take 2 cases, maybe 3 cases a year. If we take your case, it'll be 10 years before we get to it. This is in 1990. I said, it's going to be 10 years. Well, guess what? I got 75 years. I got time to write. I'm going to write you for 10 years. And I did, sometime twice a year. And they took my case 10 years later, which would be what? 2000. Yeah, this is participatory. You can talk to me. 2000. They got me out 8 years after that. It's 2008. So that was 18 years. Are there any 18-year-olds in here? At least one. There you go. Yeah, everything you ever done from the time of your conception, I was trying to get out of that prison. I had already served over 6 years, but for 18 years. But here's where things begin to change for me, I think, spiritually, and not to push religion or proselytize or try to convert, but this is just part of my journey and my story, is that in 1998, the same year had I received the death penalty, I wrote this letter to Jesus Christ, 1998. Wasn't a prayer, wasn't a plea. It was a challenge from me. And I said these words, Dear Jesus Christ, if you're real and you know all things, you and I know I'm innocent. If you help me get out of this place, not only would I serve you, but I'll tell the world about you. Sincerely yours, Darryl Burton. Didn't have a mailing address, and I folded that up, put it under my mattress for a couple of days, and I got rid of it. I wrote the letter for 2 reasons. One, because I didn't believe in God, didn't believe in Jesus, and didn't know about his story of innocence. I had no connection to that until I started reading about this guy. And also, when someone said, why don't you try God? My grandmother's words echoing in my head. She had died by this point. Try Jesus, try God. I'm like, look, I've written him a letter. He is not answering my mail. So keep God out of this. Human beings did this to me. Human beings do ugly things to other human beings. That's all I wanted to deal with. Well, 3 signs came strictly, I think, from the heavens, or my grandmother. Is that first sign is that Centurion, as you see right here, is called Centurion. They got that name out of the Bible. Centurion, when Jesus was being crucified, a centurion said, surely this man was innocent. At least 5 times in the Bible, there's, some references about Jesus' innocence. I'm innocent. So this goes back 2,000 years plus about innocent people. That's one sign. The second sign is that this little bald-headed man right here, I can say bald head, we got the same hairdo. His name is James. One of Jesus' apostles, maybe one of his brothers' name is James. That's the second sign. Well, here's the kicker for me. The third sign is that this lady right here, her name is Cheryl Pilate, as in Pontius Pilate. You think somebody was trying to get my attention. Ray Charles could see, a blind man could see, somebody was trying to make connection with me. And I still wouldn't believe, but at least 5 times. The Centurion said Jesus was innocent. Pilate said it 3 times he was innocent. That's 4 times. And another guy who was being executed, with Jesus on the cross, he said that Jesus was innocent. So at least 5 references about Jesus' innocence is in the Bible. And I'm thinking, man, this guy was innocent too. Let me find out more about him. So someone said, you know what, Darryl, if you get a Bible with red letters, those are quotes straight out of Jesus' mouth, red letters. So I wanted to read nothing but the red letters. What did Jesus say? He said, love your enemy. In Matthew's gospel, love my enemies. Are you kidding me? Love these people who did this to me? That's impossible. I'm going to hate these people, and I'm going to hate them forever, and amen to that. That's what my mentality was. Second thing he said was, pray for them. Pray for them. Pray for people who I hate. What kind of religion is this? Yeah, I pray for them. I was not a saved person. I said, I pray a building fall on one of them fools. That's what I'd pray. I was not saved. I was angry. Third thing he said was, forgive them. Forgive them. How do you forgive people who hurt you and do you wrong? And people you hate? It's not possible. I said, that's why I can't buy into this religion stuff. It don't work like that these days. That's 2,000-3,000-year-old religion. Till I kept reading where Jesus was beat, spit on, whipped with a cat of 9 tails, a crown of thorns put on his head till he bled. One verse in the Bible began to change and transform my heart. Luke's gospel, chapter 23, verse 34, when Jesus was being crucified, he said, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. That verse touched me. I said, how could this guy do that? To me, that was divine. That was not human. How can this guy forgive these people and they killing him? I said, he forgave even at the point of death. So I had no more excuses. I said, man, I'm in the land of the living. I got to try to pray for these people and forgive them. So I began to pray for them just like this. I'm going to pray for them, Jesus. But man, you know what they did to me. You know that out of me. Make them turn around. Let's make these people let me go. And I was just so angry, filled with rage, and bitterness, and hate. I'm praying for people who I hated, despised. And I just gave up and said, God, it's too hard for me. I can't forgive them. And it's like something whispered to me into my spirit and said, no, Darryl, you can't forgive them. But I can forgive them through you if only you would let me. And I realized that's how the forgiveness worked. And I looked back close at that verse and I saw that Jesus couldn't forgive them either. That's why he said, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. And I understood and understand today that forgiveness can only come from God through us if we let God use us to forgive those who've hurt and harmed us. That's the only way it works. Human beings can't forgive, but God can through us. And I was saying to someone earlier that God had to work something out of me, hate, anger, and forgiveness and bitterness, unforgiveness and bitterness, to work something into me. Love, grace, mercy, and forgiveness so God could do work through me. Because had I remained angry and bitter the way that I was, I probably would have never left that prison. And I probably wouldn't be talking to you all today. And I think Nelson Mandela said it best that, they asked him how he was able to forgive and let go. He said that, well, if I had held on to that hate and bitterness, he said, that's another prison, self-imposed. It's a spiritual prison. He said, I wasn't going to do that to myself. And so I said, neither would I. I'm not going to put myself in a spiritual prison of hate and anger. I'm going to move on with the rest of the life that I have left and just go and try to help somebody as I have been helped. And so here's what they were able to do to bring me home. The lawyers went back and they discovered that there was a woman, the gas station attendant, the night the crime was committed. She was a few feet from where the crime took place. Well, she came to my trial back in 1985, and she was not a young woman. She had moved away to Baltimore, Maryland, and they found this lady and brought her back to Missouri. In 1985, she told the police the day of the trial, she said, hey, wait a minute. You've got the wrong man. That's not the man who committed the crime. That man is too dark. Remember my dark skin? What I was ashamed of? Well, I can kiss myself today. Black looks so good on me. They say blacker the berry, sweeter the juice, darker the skin, deeper the roots. One of them rappers said that, Tupac, one of them. I like it, wherever it came from. Black, the berry, sweeter juice. At any rate, that didn't come out to 2007. They also discovered that one of the key witnesses for the prosecution, They said this guy only had a couple of convictions. Well, he had 12 convictions. He was a career criminal. They say he was facing only a couple of years in jail. He was facing 30 years in jail. That's what motivated this guy to come and to lie on me. He's facing 30 years, not 2 years like they had presented to the jury, in the beginning. They hid that information. He also 5 months after he testified against me, he signed a sworn affidavit saying he had lied on me, wanted to retract and wanted to recant it. None of this came out to 2007. They hid that information. They hid all of those facts for 20-something years. And had they destroyed those facts, I wouldn't be standing here today, because it's so hard to prove your innocence. It is so difficult and so challenging, and so that's why today, this work that we do called Miracle of Innocence is to help other innocent people get out of prison. When I went in there, I thought I was the only person in the world, anywhere, that was innocent. I didn't think this had happened. I didn't know this Jesus story. I didn't know about that story, or another guy named Joseph. So I didn't know how far back it went, but we know if it happened to Jesus, who I believe is the Son of God or the Messiah, who am I? Or who are any of us? Have any of you ever been accused of doing something you didn't do by show of hands? Well, it's probably everybody in this room, yes. Well, you can't even believe or imagine that for something you didn't do and someone is accusing you of something and you get locked away in a cage for the rest of your days. It's just you can't imagine it. Or being separated from your children or your family or your community for a quarter of a century. You can't imagine that, and you shouldn't have to. Well, I couldn't imagine it either until it happened to me. And now I'm blessed to say that, I've met some wonderful people, like this guy right here. You recognize that guy? Y'all know what that is? Who is that? His name is right there, isn't it? Easy test. Danny Glover. Yeah, well, Danny Glover was giving a presentation. He's a social justice activist, and he was giving a presentation. The guy was on death row, and he was sharing, about, death penalty and trying to advocate to get this guy, from keeping him from being executed. And he did. He didn't get executed. The guy that's sentenced commuted. But I met Danny Glover because I was just come home and I was in an audience, just like this here, and someone said, hey, Danny, there's a guy, Darryl Burton. He did 25 years. He's sitting here, man, he just got out. He was wrongfully convicted and was facing the death penalty. He said, well, where you at? And they pointed me out. He said, come here, man, and gave me this huge bear hug and said, if you ever need me, you just call on me, and I'll be there for you. Now, I don't know if he meant that, but I'm going to show him this picture one of these days because I will be calling on Danny Glover, to remind him of what he said. We may need to raise some funds with him, Neil. What do you think? You raise a lot of money. I know that's what you do. And I met a couple other guys. You know these guys? And again, their names are right here. Brian Dennehy, John Grisham. I think Brian may have passed away. But these guys too. They social justice. They activists about justice. And I've spoken to all kind of groups. I've spoken to atheist groups, biker groups. Hate groups. I've spoken to Jewish groups, and no one likes injustice. All the groups I've spoken to, no one likes injustice. I don't care, young, old, or what your persuasions and nationality is. People just don't like people to be treated unfairly, and that's what all of us. We just don't like people to be treated unfairly, and that's what these guys. That's what they're about, trying to just seek justice for people who get sent to prison wrongfully. And here's an odd and very strange, process with the criminal justice system for those who come back to society, who committed the crimes. They have all kind of programs in place for them. Did you know that? These reentry programs, second chance, second step, first step. They help these guys with housing, with transportation, with communication, and they should. These folks did their time, they come back to society, and they get help and support. I went to one of those programs, asked for help. You know what they told me? Said, we can't help you. You're innocent. I said, what? I said, but I did 25 years in prison, wrongfully. That's what we mean. You didn't commit the crime. Since you was innocent, we'll lose our funding if we help you. It's just like somebody walking off the street. We help the people who committed the crime, not innocent people. You need to start your own program. I said, that is crazy. They said, it may be crazy, but that's the way it is. I couldn't believe it, but that's how the system is so backwards. And they didn't help me, except they said, we can give you a job. We'll let you work for us, and then we can justify giving you some support and some help because you work for us to help other people when they come home reintegrate back into society. But this is just the oddest thing I've ever heard. So they get funding allocated from the state, from federal, from, local governments. They allocate funds to people who committed the crime. They allocate nothing for people who are innocent. If you don't get compensated, you get no help. And that's just backwards. And again, to me, that's just wrong. That's an injustice. That's another thing that we have to say. That's why we have some flyers and things passing out to you. But that's another thing that we have to correct, because a lot of people don't know that. They think a lot of innocent people come home and, well, the world just opened up and just take care of them. I was homeless for, a few days when I got out. One of my brothers had a heart attack. My grandfather died within the 30 days. So it was really a very, very challenging time for me when I come home. And so, with this organization, we hope to help some other folks, through Miracle of Innocence, to help people get connected back to society. Not only help them get out, but help them once they come home. Because I know how challenging it was for me, and I know what it's going to be like for any and everybody else who are wrongfully convicted when they come home. It's tough. Getting out is just part of half the equation. Trying to reintegrate back into society. With today's technology, that's a whole nother ball of wax. And technology didn't exist when I went in '84. There was no internet, no cell phones, no iPads, no CDs. I went in, it was cassette tapes. I know half the room don't even know what that is, right? Cassette tapes. Is there about 3 people who know what cassette tapes is in the room? That was just one generation away from 8-track tapes. I bet you that really some folks don't know what I'm talking about now. So it's like a whole new world. It's a whole new world. And that's what it is like when I come home to this whole new world. Just like some of y'all don't know about 8-track tapes and cassette tapes. I don't know about iPads and iPhones and CDs. And this stuff was just so new to me. I was overwhelmed. And I just want to, as I close, I just want to talk about a couple of guys who were compensated. Some friends of mine, they were exonerated. They served, 20 plus years in prison, and they were innocent. And they were compensated. They were given millions of dollars. After they got out in different states. Wasn't in Missouri. Missouri compensate DNA exonerations, not people like me. My case was not DNA. But they had all the money that they could ever spend. They was never going to be broke. And both of them still committed suicide. So it wasn't about the money, the PTSD. It's like some warriors, and people come home from the military. We never get beyond, what, we had to go through. I still have nightmares sometimes where I'm waking up. Sometimes I'm shaking real bad. I'm screaming, even right now, because, I can never, ever stop reliving what I went through in that prison. And it's by the grace of God, that the church, I found a church called Resurrection. The church has helped me, and the people in the church. That's what has really been my saving grace, really. It has been, for me, it has been the way of God and religion, because I've had some low moments, too, in society since I've been home. And so thank you for allowing me to share today. I can say that I'm not bitter. I'm better because there is a God that's bigger than anything we ever face. And for any of you young people, when you go through some challenges in life, there is a divine intervention, some people, also human beings, that can help you get through it. And that's for anybody of any age. So they arrested me, but God rescued me. So this story, it's bigger than me. It is not my story. I think the story belongs to God. It belongs to the world. And that's why I'm honored to come and share it. Anywhere I'm asked to come and share it, I will come and share it. So thank you all for listening, and God bless. Turning dreams into reality.
Yeah, we have some time for questions, and Avery has agreed to be the Mike Romer person. So thank you, Avery.
Are there any questions?
How did you reunite with your daughter?
A great question. How did I reunite with my daughter? I came home and I was asking folks to get on this thing called the internet and find my little girl, and they did. Some people got on the internet and they was looking, they was searching, and they couldn't find her. I just gave the name. I had no clue as to where she was at. And then there was a newspaper article, and I was on the front page. Man found innocent, after 24 years, nearly 25 years in prison, wrongfully. And this lady was looking at it, and she showed it to this gentleman. She said, hey, man, look at this guy who was in prison all these years. So the guy who looked at the newspaper article, well, that was my daughter's uncle. And he looked, and he said, oh, my God, this is my niece's dad. And so he called his sister, and she called me, and that's how I got reconnected with my daughter. They were living in Indiana, somewhere in Indiana. And so that's how we got reconnected. And she was angry with me, as I was sharing earlier, that I abandoned her, even though she knew it wasn't my fault, but the fact that she didn't have her dad in her life or her mother. So she had every right to be angry because I abandoned her no matter it wasn't my fault. And I feel bad about that. That's the one regret of all of this whole tragic situation. That's the main one. I just wasn't there with my daughter, but that's a great question, because you love your children, of course you love them, and I come from a big family, so we're about family, we're about kids, we love kids, and she don't have any children. I don't know if she's going to have any children. I think she said it because what she went through as a child. I don't think she's not married, and actually you see, I don't know if I can go back to the picture of her, but I think Right there. Yeah, she's beautiful. Look at her. Isn't she beautiful? Look just like her daddy, don't she? Yeah. I hope not. Well, she'd be in trouble. She looked like me. But yes, so yeah, you want to be with your family. Any other questions? Somebody's back here. And another thing about it, she graduated high school on time. She emancipated herself from the foster care system. And I share with her, I'm so proud of her. She's proud of me also. But I said, I did nothing for you. I can't take credit for, none of how you turned out. I said, the only thing I can say that I gave you is a fighting spirit. We both fighters. We fought our way through these institutions. And she lived in Kansas, not far from me. And I shared with her, she said she's trying to get a car, she's working and she needs a car. I said, I've never done anything for you in my life. Just let me save a little money and I want to buy you a car. I want to buy her a car. That's one thing I want to buy. But she said, you got to hurry up, Dad, it's getting cold. Because, so anybody got a secondhand car they want to sell, I'll buy it. Yes.
Yeah, my question is, you talked about, how there's students in the audience and your mistreatment by the criminal justice system. And I know I have students here who are going into the human services profession and things like that. What kind of advice do you have for them about working with people, either going through the criminal justice system, in the prison system, or anything along those lines?
Yeah, great question. Patience, being patient with a lot of folks who's dealing with the criminal justice system, and also that, when folks go through a system like this here, the mind it's a tricky thing, and you talk about people who have mental health problems. Well, when you're faced with something as traumatic as that, you can start losing, a gauge on reality. And and so being patient with them and trying to get them the kind of services and the support that they need, connect with their families, and try not to be judgmental. Try not to judge them, because they may be charged with something horrible, very horrible, but they might be innocent, and they may not, but just try, to show them some grace. Just try to be graceful with them and with their families, because that's what they're going to need. The last thing that a person needs is to be judged when they're going through any kind of situation, or for anybody to be judged when you're trying to help somebody, and, well, you should do this, or you should have did this, or you shouldn't have did this. Try not to judge, and it'll be hard, and some of the facts may look really, really bad, just like in this case with me. The prosecutor kept saying, it's a fact, ladies and gentlemen, it's a fact, ladies and gentlemen. I got 2 witnesses that said he did it. Well, it was false facts. They were lies. You made that up. They were not facts. They was just, they were lies. So, and just try to just, be patient with them. But great question. Anyone else? Y'all want to go home, don't you? I know it. You don't want me to hold you like they held me for all those years. But that's a question, and I think she got a question. Well, she got the mic right now.
Can you tell us a little bit about your mother and how she handled?
Yeah.
I don't know if she's living, but tell us a little bit about your mother now.
Right. Yes. Oh, thanks for asking. Yes, my mother's still living. She's in and she got a birthday coming up. She's in her upper 80s, 86, 87, somewhere in there. She was a single parent. My father died when he was 49 from cancer, but they had separated even when we were small, had divorced. But she's still holding on. Very strong lady. She's strong in her faith. Again, she was Christian just like my grandmother. She's strong in her faith. She was so happy that I come home, that I was exonerated and proven innocent. And in fact, of all the folks in my family, like big family, and a lot of people who, loved me when we first got started in this tragic saga, family members coming to visit me, but over time, the visits got less. The only one who was visiting me all the way up to the end, you know who that was? It was Mama. It was Mama. And I said, Mom, just don't come, because she wanted to come by herself and drive. And I said, no, because there was at least once or twice there was some tragic accidents when a guy, his mother and his children were coming to see him, and they was trying to cross over this railroad crossing, and they were killed. So a lot of guys, we started saying, hey, don't come and see me. Just we'll call or write letters or something like that. But Mom was there. She was there from the, start to the stop, start to the finish. Yeah. You mothers, you know how you are. To me, you're Christ incarnate, That's where you women are, I can't say that about the men, but I can say that about the ladies, Women, forgiving. You really do show kind of, what I call the epitome, examples of Christ. And it's one thing, and I also want to say about Christians and the Christian faith, not to knock any other faith, is that something we have that is like a couple of principles that we live by. Not any other faith that I'm aware of live by these two principles that we have been commanded, or at least, encouraged to do as Christians. And one is to forgive. Jesus said to forgive, and the other one is to love unconditionally. This agape kind of love. I don't know of any other faith that teaches these two principles other than the Christian faith. Peculiar religion, very peculiar. And I didn't know that either, when I was not a believer. And I'm like, man, what kind of religion is this? You Christians teach some really, really strange kind of stuff, but it works. I think it was a lady right here. Can you bring it a mic? Excuse me, Avery, can you bring it a mic so I can hear you, but just so everyone else can hear you? Sorry about that.
Have you been able to go back to any prisons and visit?
Yes. Have I been able?
It can't be easy for you to do that.
It wasn't. It's going back to the prison. It was not easy the first time I went back. But here's the thing, and that I went back, and I'm going to tell you this very quick story. I went back to the prison that I was released from. I grew up in that place, so these guys we were like. Many of us were like brothers, especially the church group. I went back to see the church group of guys, and man, we was like brothers in that prison growing up. And so when I got there, it was tears and cheers, and I came as a surprise visitor. The chaplain didn't tell him who was coming. For weeks, he had been building up, hey, I got this speaker that's coming back, and you guys going to love him. And so they didn't know who it was until I showed up. And when I showed up, it was so many, tears and cheers. And then this guy was rolling through an aisle just like this here in a wheelchair. His name was Percy. And he was rolling through and he was boo-hooing, just crying so uncontrollably. And I kneeled down in front of him. I said, Percy, I told you I was coming back. It's all right. It's all right. He said, no, Darryl, you don't understand. Last night I told God to show me that, a sign that he was still with me, because today I was going to commit suicide. You're my sign from God. Yes. So that's why I go back. And since COVID, I haven't been able to get back a lot, but, hopefully when this thing kind of, fizzle out, I'll be going back more, because it gives those folks hope. Hold on, pain ends. It gives them hope. And there's somewhere in the Bible, Jesus said, when I was in prison, did you come visit me? I don't know, have anybody ever heard that scripture? I had some Christian family members. When I read that scripture, I used to put them on a guilt trip with them. And hey, Jesus said, when I was in prison, you come visit me. They said, that's what Jesus said. I ain't Jesus, so I'll see you when I see you. They still didn't come. So, go figure that one out. Yes. Any other questions?
Were there any positive experiences in prison? Any help, any support?
Yeah, any positive experiences in prison? I shared this earlier, and I'm going to share it right now very quickly. There was all kinds of, different Christian and denominations, different other faiths that came to the prison and visited the prison. But there was this group of Catholics that used to come in. And they came in, and they still go in, but they did 2 or 3 times a year. They had what they call, it's like a crescendo, a residence encounter of Christ, where Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, I think you can just hang out with them, and the Muslims went to that group, the atheists, the agnostics, the Jews, everybody said, man, those Catholics, when they come, sign me up for that group, and you want to get out of the cell. But they also brought some really good food, so that's why I was going, because they brought some really great food. But they were not judgmental. They didn't want to know what kind of time you was doing or serving, what kind of crime. They was just filled with grace. And I would say this to other inmates also, man, if I ever become a Christian, I want to be like them, And that's kind of what I find with the Methodists, kind of middle of the road. But I said, I want to be like them. They were not preaching and pushing Jesus or hell and brimstone. We said, why you all do this? And what do you get out of it? They said, nothing. You children of God. God loves you, and so do we. That's why we do it. They still go. And, for 30 years, I had a 30-year anniversary, and they invited me back to come to that anniversary. I had gotten out, was exonerated and set free. And they said, Darryl, you never told us you were innocent. I said, no, I didn't talk about it because people don't talk about being innocent in prison. You talk about that a lot of guys, before they get convicted, but after that, you have to prove it. Nobody want to hear that. I said, so it wasn't for me to share that with you. I had to prove it. And so now you see, they said, well, man, we're so glad you're out. But yeah, those Catholics, they was special in a good way. Any other questions or comments? Anybody else?
Darryl, I just want to share with this group. I've invested in you because we became great friends, and your story was so compelling. It's just like the compelling story here at Dakota Wesleyan University. I'm still a significant donor here in DWU because I believe in DWU. I believe in Morningside College, forgive me, but I graduated from there, so I've got to support them too. And it really is true for me. And you didn't tell me to say these things, but the more we give, if you're able, the more you're going to get back. St. Paul's School of Theology supports Miracle of Innocence because I believe in it. So we as a seminary, even though we're asking for money, we give money to Miracle of Innocence. And I invested heavily personally as well. So I just say if you want to give or you desire to give to Miracle of Innocence, there's no wasted dollars. Darryl didn't make much money to stand up here and tell you his story. But the dollars that you would invest in Miracle of Innocence can help free others. And my reading and studying, since I've known Darryl, there are thousands of people in prison wrongfully. So that's my testimony about Miracle of Innocence and about giving. So I don't care if you get $5 a month or whatever you can give. Your life will be blessed if you decide to do that.
Thank you, Neil. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you. Yeah, no, I didn't tell you, to share that. Thank you for sharing that. And I just want to give just a few statistical, some data, because I know people like data. We like stats and facts. And so, of 2.3 million people who are incarcerated in the United States, just 1%, just a very conservative number, 1% of 2.3 million people incarcerated wrongfully, that's 23,000 people. And I heard someone say Mitchell is about, what, 10, 15, 20,000 in Mitchell? I don't know what the numbers are. Is that close? Yeah, well, that means every one of you will be incarcerated wrongfully, and plus. But that's a lot of people. And someone said that the stats at least 2 to 5% of people in the United States that are innocent. That's a horrible number. I was a part of those statistics. It is also believed that 1 in 25 that's on death row are innocent and may be executed. Now, it may be a hard stat to believe or to think about, but if you go back 2,000 years ago, Jesus was innocent and they executed him. As Christians, we believe in his resurrection, but they executed an innocent man 5 times. They knew he was innocent, even Pilate, and he washed his hands and said, well, it ain't on me. But he knew he was innocent. He could have released that man the same way the judge could have released me, because there was a judge that released me, 24, 25 years later. A signature. It was a judge who looked at the same evidence that they had hidden for all those years, and he said, this man is innocent, and released me. And had I received the death penalty, I would have been executed. But I would not have resurrected, not in the physical form, and that's the truth. That's the tragedy, And so, and I can give you so many other stats. They say 75% of wrongful convictions, somewhere in that number, is identification. People see things that they don't see, or say they see things that they didn't see, and all of us have made mistakes with identification. Have you ever saw somebody look like, man, I know this person from somewhere, and they say, hey, is your name Bob? No, my name ain't Bob. Man, you look like Bob. Have you ever anybody ever done that? So, that's misidentification. At least 30 to 40% is police misconduct and prosecutorial misconduct. At least 30, 40%. So that's like 4 people out of 10 where the prosecutors and the police is getting it wrong. It's the best system we got, and a lot of people make mistakes, and God forgive you if you make a mistake. But when you do it intentionally, that's what upsets me. When you deliberately hide evidence, and withhold evidence and don't disclose it, then that's a problem, because that was not a mistake. You knew what you was doing. I'm sorry if I'm going on and on and on, but I get a little passionate, about this topic. So it's about 8 o'clock. Y'all want to continue? Because I don't wear watches. I see a hand back here. I don't keep time. I know, Joe, you probably want to leave, but there's another hand back there.
Yes, here.
Yeah, so-
Where's Avery?
I've done a lot of
my boot,
time,
it
so-
takes a long time for me to get back there, so
Yeah.
I'll let Avery do that.
yeah. See, I've done a lot of time, so I don't keep up with time. You know, I don't let time do me, because I'm on God's time. I think, aren't we all? We on God's time. We have an expiration date. Hopefully not soon.
So I was just curious, but you ever still get angry?
Yes. Curious, do I ever still get angry? Yes. I get triggers. You know, when that happened to George Floyd last year, you know, that really, that angered me, because that was not the first time I saw something like that. You know, and we know cops are great. We can't just generalize and put them all in one bucket. Remember, I used to hate them all. But just to see something like that to happen to that man, that angered me, but I was inspired by all the young people who were protesting. Many of them looked like you. They were white, young kids, and I was on the couch watching, and I said, man, even during the COVID, I said, I got to get out there. And I went out there in tears, and people saying, Darryl Burton, you know, Black Lives Matter. I'm a dark guy. You see how dark I am? You want to know how many times I've been profiled? I can't even give you the number. That's a statistic I can't keep up with. And I know people don't really necessarily, I can't say what's in folks' hearts and what they mean, but that upset me because it didn't have to happen. You know, that didn't have to happen for 9 minutes, 30 seconds, whatever it was. It just didn't have to happen. The same way I get angry with guys I saw in prison doing things like that to other inmates or guards. And I'll tell you a quick story. A young guy named Ron was having a psychotic fit. Little Ron, he needed his medicine. And he was saying to the guards, man, I need my medicine. I'm having this fit. He had mental problems. And all he was asking for was his medicine. But he was starting to foam. He was getting upset. And the guard came up behind him and V-necked him and killed him in front of everybody. Just killed him. You know, that's what I'm saying, what you see in prison. And Ron had an older brother there named Greg. And guys ran to Greg and said, man, we got the riot. They just killed your brother. The guard just killed your brother. And Greg was a very religious guy. I was not a religious guy at the time. And Big Greg said, no, we let God deal with this here. It's not going to bring my brother back. We're not going to do anything. But he was in prison wrongfully because he was trying to protect his brother who had killed somebody, and Greg got swooped up, and Greg hadn't done anything with it. He just knew his brother had psychotic problems, which Greg eventually got out also, proven innocent. But so I'm saying that's the kind of stuff, it bothers me, but that's injustice. I don't care where it is. I don't like injustice. I just don't like it, you know. And then I have to pray, calm down, you know, and let God deal with it, you know, and other human beings. We can make the difference. You all, especially young people, you can make the difference. You can make the change. You have to, man. We only have one life, one planet. We just one people, one human race. That's it, for real.
Darryl, thank you so much for coming. It's been an incredible pleasure, and we're
Yes.
very pleased that I wish you all could have seen the way students responded to him this morning. There was a lineup of students that wanted to speak to him individually. It was really something to behold, and so it's been an incredible experience to have Darryl here. So we do have two more speakers coming up. I wish I had them right with me and thought to bring, but we have in May. Rachel Lamb is going to be coming, who is an evangelical Christian climate scientist. And so she'll be talking about climate change from an evangelical Christian vantage point. And then in April, we're bringing in Harry Boyd, who used to work with Dr. Martin Luther King when he was here, and now is a person that's developed the training for people to be engaged in the democratic process, what he calls public work. And so we're going to be, that will also be a great experience, and we're really looking forward to bringing Harry Boyd here as well. His wife, Marie Strom, is a South African woman and actually does work in South Africa consulting with governments on how to set up democratic systems. And we're going to have an opportunity for our students to have like an intense workshop in the whole idea of being an engaged citizen and being at work to increase the democratic process. So a lot of exciting things coming up in this coming year as far as the Dakota Wesleyan lectureship series. So thank you for coming this evening, and it's been a wonderful, yeah. Oh, yes. In September 22 of 2022, George McGovern would have turned 100 that year. He was born in 1922. And it's the 50th year since the 72 election. And so we're going to have a significant McGovern celebration. And so just put that in your September 22, 2022. It should be easy to remember. And we are going to honor the real legacy of George and Eleanor McGovern. So kind of make a mental note of that. Thank you for coming this evening. And thank you so much, Darryl, for what an incredible job this has been.